and I have seen this with my own eyes in Syria. Syria is an extremely tight and corrupt dictatorship. However, the Syrian Minister of Finance, who is a party man from way back and who's deputy prime minister, and he's no fool, stands up in front of a meeting of business people and talks the talk about reform. And some guy in the back raises his hand and he says, Your Excellency, what you're saying didn't happen. It's not happening, and I can tell you it's not happening. And the minister says something, and he sits down. And then when the minister finishes, he stands up again, and he says, Your Excellency, what you just said is wrong. This is not happening. Now, this guy's instincts are to take out a gun and shoot him. And in the good old days of the 70s, he would have been disappeared. But today, the government, not because the government is an enlightened and wonderful group of people, because there's money involved. And Damascus is all about money, as is Aleppo, the second big city. And the government knows that if they killed the goose that lays the golden eggs, then you know the rest of it. So the government tolerates this, and more than tolerates it, the government is a little bit afraid of it. In the early 70s, a Syrian constitution was introduced that did not include Islam. No mention of Islam. The only constitution in the Arab world, no mention of Islam. Riots broke out in Damascus. And the Alawite ruling group, which is still ruling, through the military, made a deal with the Damascus bourgeoisie. The deal was that live and let live. You guys can make money, and we will control the levers of security, etc. And the head of state in Syria has to be a Muslim. That was the compromise. And that's been the deal since then, and it's still there. Meanwhile, all of these little Alawites have grown up. And these guys, typically, I don't know if anybody here is Alawite Syrian, I don't know, no offense is meant. These guys sit around and you know, kids, 10, 11-year-old kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an artillery officer. What do you want to be? I want to be an intelligence officer. What do you want to be? I want to be a doctor. A doctor, how quaint and unusual for somebody not to want to be a soldier and part of the... That is changing. That is changing because the bright lights, because of globalization, internet, all of these things are seeping into the system. And these guys are starting themselves to be entrepreneurs. Entrepreneur is a very loose term for a crook who monopolizes something and behaves in a very bad way on a personal level, but he's still an entrepreneur. Some of your entrepreneurs in this country were putting bombs under each other's trains back in the 19th century, among other things. So, you know, business is business.
We've got one last question.
You chose to exclude Turkey from your analysis today, but I'd like to hear a little bit about Turkey's economic presence in the region, especially in development efforts in Kurdish region.
I'm sorry, I had talked about Turkey at the beginning to exclude it, and I meant to include it later, but we got sidetracked with Palestine, Egypt, and Syria, and so forth. Turkey has become a key player, and Turkey will play an increasing role in the regional economy. The Turkish government a couple of years ago, under this new foreign minister, I forget his name, adopted a policy of something like don't upset your neighbors or zero problems with neighbors. And since then, it has been, you go into any store today, forget about Erbil. Erbil it's a Turkish commercial outpost. In Jordan, in Syria to a great extent, the stuff that's being sold in the stores is Turkish. And it's good stuff. It's cost effective. You buy the package of European biscuits costs $3. The Turkish biscuits cost half $1. And they're almost as good. The clothes, the Turkish suit costs $45. The European suit costs $300. The Turks are really moving into the region economically, but this is beneficial. This is, you know, because this is a new ball game. No more tariff barriers, no more protection of industries. You got to let them in. And they're coming in more and more. And this is great. Because this also is building these little Lilliputian bridges. You know, there's something in the Middle East called Tajir al-Shanta, the suitcase trader. Billions of dollars of business is now being done with Turkey, including the Caucasus and Russia, not just the Arab countries, guys going back and forth with their little suitcases, and this adds up. And very important, this creates stability. Because when everybody is doing business with everybody else, it's not easy to start a war.
It's especially interesting in Syria with the free trade between Syria and Turkey now.
The most interesting. I hope that I've said interesting things in the past few minutes, and that our friends at MEI will invite me back next year to do a follow-up.
Well, that depends on how our investments do in Lebanon, Kurdistan, and Saudi. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you.